So every year, I take a look at my writer's workshop and I think about what's working and what's not working. And based on the research that I did, and there's a video a couple videos ago about the research on the science of teaching writing, there are a couple of things that I've decided I'm going to double down on this year. So stay tuned and I'll tell you what they are. Hi, I'm Robin Millum, children's book author with Disney Hyperion and HarperCollins. I'm also a middle school teacher and I teach writing. And I have a writer's workshop that's student led and it's structured and it's really, really engaging for them. And many of you are doing the program. I just want to thank you so much for reaching out to me, emailing me, asking questions. Please keep doing that. We're kind of pulling this all together as we go as a group, which is fantastic. We're building this as we go. Um, every year I stop and I take a look and I figure out what is working, what's not working. It's different every year because the kids are a little bit different depending on just what's going on in the world. And then, of course, what age they are. And for a while, I was teaching eighth grade. And then now I'm back to sixth grade of them. There are some things that are going so well. So, what's working is student leaders. That has been by far one of the best things that we've been doing this year. They love the chance to be the captain or co-captain. The ones that when it's time to close out their job and move on to the next person, I've been doing it this year. I did it quarterly. Sometimes I do it by month, but I needed to make sure they totally understood their job before I moved on to the next person. So this last time when I closed out the quarter, there were some kids who were like, oh my gosh, basically in tears, having to lose their captain job for writer's workshop. And then so many of them signed up to be the captain, co-captain, timekeeper, all this stuff. They love that part of it. They love doing the warm-ups themselves, telling me that it's my turn to teach and then taking it back and then having the captain say, okay, everybody right. Timekeeper says, and go. And they just that little bit of it, just, it gives it like a feeling to it that it's their workshop and I'm here to just be the coach on the side, which I love too. The diamond mining is going so well this year, particularly with me finding the diamond and then giving them the diamond. And I'm doing a lot of mine digitally, and I'll go over that in a bit. But some teachers I've seen are doing physical little fake diamonds that they're giving out, which is so cool. It sits on their desk all day. The act of trying to find a diamond writer for me has been such a cool process to try and figure out what it is that I'm looking for. And then also looking for growth and also looking to shout out kids who might normally get shout outs, and finding whatever it is in their writing. And just that little bit, that little time they got that diamond. I had one student who brought it up in a conference that was like one of her coolest moments, which was one of my coolest moments. Do you ever say that? So there's a lot that's going well. So then I did some research and a couple videos ago, I talked about that of the science of teaching writing, what information we have out there. And it's not a lot, but based on what we do have, I realized there were two things that I want to really kind of double down on. And one of them has to do with one of the six skills. Now, I'm typically really like double, triple, quadruple down on voice and hooks. I mean, that's kind of what they remember me for. Like my kids will see me later after they've had me and be like, oh yeah, I write hooks all the time, Mrs. Mullum. Like that's the thing. And me helping them find their voice. So they know that they're going to get those lessons from me a lot deeply and over and over and over. The third one, and I do them all in priority of high priority. The third one is sentence complexity. So that is the one that I feel like I want to give a little bit more repetitive lessons on until I am sure that they have it, because it's almost like in the middle there where that lesson can pivot and it can help with all their narrative writing, personal writing, fiction. And then it's also necessary for their essay writing, informational, argumentative. They need complexity in everything that they write. So I feel like I need to dive into that a little bit more. And I have a lesson in here that I want to show you. I'm going to show you on my screen, and then we're going to come back here And I'm going to tell you what number two is that I'm going to be doubling down on. Okay, we'll meet right back.
I'm going to show you a few different ways that I tackle sentence complexity. Whenever I'm giving them the lessons on this, I only focus on just a couple of different ways to do this at a time so it doesn't get to be too overwhelming for them. So I start with variety and then structure, but variety is teaching them how to do long sentences, medium, and short. And it's so much better once they can start doing this one little thing of adding in these little short sentences here. They love doing this and their writing punches up so quickly. And let me show you the variety activities that we do. This is kind of like the first round of stuff that I do in the writer's workshop, the beginning of the year. And then I'll show you how I'm layering onto that through to the end of the year. So once we've gone over these different examples of sentence variety, I show them some passages that have been rewritten so that they can see how this complexity gives it such more readability. They do some matching and they start writing their own with a prompt that I've given them. I love them also having them, after they've written some of their own, they go out and they find examples from a novel that's in their classroom or in the library and find short, medium, long. It's interesting to see them realize that authors do this quite a bit and they may not have even realized it. Now, once I've gone through that, we start talking about simple, compound, complex sentences, which is not like their favorite topic, but we try and make it as interesting as possible. So I break all of this down, like show them all the parts of the sentence and all that. And then I show them simple sentences and then how they're grown into compound and then complex and just the different ways you can switch it up. So you could give them even just a simple sentence and see if they can try and add on to it. So sentence building is a really great way for them to practice complexity. And it's something you could do in your warm-ups too. Just give them a simple sentence and have them create it into one compound and one complex. Same thing with the matching, and then they start to write their own with the prompts that I give them with some hints along the way, and then they find them in other books. So now we've done that at the beginning of the year, and then let me show you what we do later. I do this thing called Write with the Pros, and so I find these passages from well-known novels, and I pull out part of it. Let me show you an example here. Like this is a whole passage from a book. I pull out one section in the middle that shows sentence variety, and this one is short, so it only has 3 words in it, and they have to try and guess. So it's hard to make sentence complexity really like fun and interesting. But these are the things that I've come up with to, anytime I have to guess, it's like a huge thing for a middle schooler to be like, oh, was I right? So anytime you can put in guess which one, see if you're right, it'll amp up their engagement quite a bit. And then as they go through these, they see what the author actually wrote and see if they were close to it. And they all go, yes. And they pull a fist bump and all that stuff, or they go, no. So let's take a look at the next thing we do. We do sentence detective work. Again, they're going to go through and do a scavenger hunt, look for more examples of authors that are using this in theirs. And then they start to like apply this and write their own sentences with medium, short, and long sentences. Here, I do the same thing where I give them passages from well-known novels, and we take a look at how these sentences are set up with complexity, like how they started with a prepositional, like an introductory prepositional phrase. This is one of my favorite ways for them to get complex writing in there pretty easily. It's actually easier than it sounds. So just getting them doing that scaffolding where you start it for them and they see. So notice this. Let me show you. Rick Riordan wrote this as behind me, and now you just tell them you're going to write like Rick Riordan does. There's something about that too that kind of goes, oh, I'm going to write like Rick Riordan today. Okay. And then here, another introductory prepositional phrase. I give them the topic. They get to pick which one of these they want to start it with. And so we do that, a lot of practicing with that. And then we go through the same thing with compound sentences and complex sentences. And this takes a while. However, there's a certain point in the year when I feel like we need to kind of like stop everything and get really, really serious about making sure our sentences are as strong as possible. So I started doing this sentence building boot camp. And Like some of my kids have to go back to the basics. You might notice that too. I teach sixth grade this year. And so we're having like go back. We're going to do basic training of simple sentences. You have to prove to me that you can do these so you can move on to these other stations. And I do it like in a week, and it's this big deal. And you got to graduate and all the stuff. So we work with just simple sentences. They have to get all these correct. And it's really specific with like, you need to have a subject, you need to have a predicate, you need to have a capital letter at the beginning of the sentence because they've forgotten that's a thing, and a period. They don't know what those are. So they have to actually physically check these off or color them in or something to show that they've done it. It's just muscle memory. They just have to get back like used to doing this. And then I take them through all these different ways that they could take a simple sentence and then make it quite a bit more interesting with opening with an adjective or opening with an adverb or using appositives. I love appositives, things like that. So they go through the boot camp, and then we get back into the sentence complexity slides as we go through the workshop through the 6 skills.
All right. So that's what I plan to do with sentence complexity. Let's move on to the second thing that I'm going to double down on. In the research that I did, there was an article in there from the Hetchinger report about the 3 components that they have found in all their research that are commonalities between them of things that really work. And of those 3, number 1 was to write all the time, something like that. It's obvious. And that's what we're doing in the workshop. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. I'm going to skip number 2. Number 3 on that list was not teaching grammar explicitly, like teaching it within context, and then also teaching it with sentence combining, which I do in my warm-ups, and I feel really comfortable with that. My kids are doing fantastic with that. We go back to number 2. So number 2 said, use technology. And I agree. And I'm plan to double down this next semester on that because as I'm sort of gauging my students as we go, I'm like looking at where they are engaged and when they're disengaged. And I kind of started at the beginning of the year with like, oh, you can handwrite in your notebook. And that seemed to be sort of novel at the beginning. Like, oh, this is cool, but it kind of can turn into lots of sketching for whatever reason. It's a whole nother thing. But then I had decided to put some of the writing into the format that we use as Class Kick. I mean, I had Google Classroom and Google Slides and Docs and all that, and I have tried slides before. Just it's a little bit cumbersome for me because when I go to click on, it's like I can see everybody's on the screen, but just the action of clicking on their slides to check in on them takes a really long time. I don't know, maybe it's just my computer, but like I'm sitting there so much that ah, it's not worth it for me because I'm wasting too much time trying to find their work and take a look at it. So the school bought us the pro version of Class Kick, and the way that like the fonts that it uses, the colors, all the stuff they can do with it. I don't know why, but the kids love it. They just, whenever I do something, they say, can we do it in Class Kick? Maybe it's because there's just ease with where all the buttons are. It's bigger. They can see their work better. A lot of times when they're in slide, they end up being at like 50%. And it's been all this time trying to explain to them how to go to the magnifying glass, change the size, blah, blah, blah. And it just bugs them. I don't know. So I started with putting in like the directions for the writer's workshop on the first slide, what their choices are, links to the digital spinner for that they could spin for themselves. So now each student gets to spin a spinner if they want to do that. And then I have like little resource pages of all the lessons we've been doing. Like, don't forget, this is voice, this is hook, this is sentence complexity, and so on. So all the information they need is on that first slide. And then they start writing after that. So I'm going to take you my screen and show you what that looks like.
So we've been starting to do Writer's Workshop digitally, and I use Class Kick for this. So I'll show you some of the slides. On the first one, it's basically their resources that they can go to at all times. It's always there, so they kind of can refer back to it, figure out what's going on. So I always have the 6 skills at the top for them so they can see which one we're focusing on. And then the 3 streets, just kind of a little graphic there that they like of which one's genre, rant and rave road, or spinner and dare. And then this kind of breaks it down a little bit more. Genre is one of these examples here, rants and raves, it defines it. And then for Spinner's story, I can actually put the link right here and then it'll take them to the Wheel of Names Spinner story choices, which they love these. I also throw on this resource page any of the slides that we worked on that I feel like they need to have so that they have a reference point. Then I'm going to show you here what the student's been doing. She put up her 2 spinner story phrases here and started writing. This was sort of at the beginning here. And then there was a progression here that I was really happy with. So in the next one, she started and wrote her line leaf goal down here. She'll see this line that she drew in, like that's how far. So let me back up. She noticed this first time, this was how much she wrote. So I kind of let them write how much they would naturally write within that amount of time. Look at that. Now kind of decide how far down your screen you think you could write this time. So she decided this was as far and she did even more than that. So that was really cool. So next time, she might do it another line in a different spot and so on. So this is really helping a lot with getting the kids to be engaged with their writing and for the revision process because once they keep adding on to these slides here, they'll have like basically a whole digital notebook of all of their writing in one spot that's really dependable. It's not going to get deleted. It's not going to go anywhere. And then when I have them do their formative assessments, it looks like this. They're picking 2 skills they want to be graded on, and then they can go back into their digital notebook, copy and paste in one of their stories that they've already written, and now they can go through the revision process so they already have something there, as opposed to like, oh, I don't know, it was in this notebook or it was on that Google slide and that got, deleted, and it's always just the stuff. So it's like, I know. In this class kick slide set, you have all your writing here and it's not going to go anywhere. So this is a really great way to use technology to get them engaged, to get them revising and really loving the process. One last thing I wanted to show you is that in Class Kick, the reason why this is so much easier and quicker for me is that you can use these stickers over here to give them feedback really quick. So on our warm-ups, once they get their sentence combining perfect, I just click on this woohoo trophy. And then I can just click on each one as they get their sentence combining done. And they know when they get the trophy, they've done it correctly. And then if they're doing, like, let's suppose this was their writing, either their digital notebook or their quick write for the warm up, I can also choose this one at the bottom, my diamond writer. So I add a diamond here, and that's where their diamond shows up.
Okay, and one last thing. If you are a writing teacher and you feel like you're not getting the results from your students that you were hoping for, I have a link for you down below. It's the 5 steps that I took to completely revamp my writer's workshop. It takes into account psychology to get them motivated. So they want to write, they love to write, they hit personal records every time they're in the workshop. And then it goes over the 6 super skills that I teach them. They're high priority skills that they learn in my workshop. So if you go below, there's a link to that, and you'll get more links to some really other cool stuff. Like you'll be able to see my year-long planner and how I've been in the workshop with my constructed responses and my essays. So check it out. And if you could like and subscribe, that would get this message out to more teachers and also like help my self-esteem. So